The time's come to review that massive extreme gaming version of the GeForce GTX 1060 that I unboxed a few weeks ago. Already we've checked out Gigabyte's Extreme Gaming 1070 and 1080 graphics cards, both of which were most impressive despite coming at a slight price premium. Paying a little extra for a 1070 or 1080 graphics card that runs cool and quiet isn't a big deal. The 1060 on the other hand could be a different story. For starters, the 1060 already runs very cool and quiet thanks to its less complex design. The 1060 is also somewhat of a budget GPU, priced at $250 for the 6GB model. Perhaps the most important factor though is that it has real competition. Unlike the upper tier Pascal cards, the 1060 has to deal with the slightly cheaper RX 480, so inflating the price doesn't exactly help to improve the 1060's position. That being said, let's get the ugly business out of the way now. The 1060 Extreme costs $300. This is obviously quite a lot more than the $250 WindForce version, so what are you getting by paying 20% more? Well, let's find out. Compared to your typical GTX 1060, the Extreme Gaming model is huge. In fact, it's virtually the same size as the much more expensive 1070 and 1080 models. Unless there's some sort of unexpected overclocking potential waiting to be tapped, making a GTX 1060 this big doesn't really make a heap of sense. Still, it does look impressive, but is there more to this graphics card than a big fan shroud and a pair of 100mm fans? Removing the cooler reveals that there is indeed something under that lid. As was the case with the 1070 and 1080 Extreme Gaming models, we find two large arrays of aluminium fins connected to a large copper base via a series of copper heat pipes. In total, the cooler weighs 707 grams, which isn't much lighter than the 791 grams cooler of the 1070 model. This is also a good bit heavier than the 658 gram cooler ASUS uses on the 1070 Strix model. When compared to the 1070 Extreme Gaming cooler, there really isn't much of a difference, which isn't surprising given there's roughly a 10% difference in total weight. Without question, this massive cooler won't have any trouble keeping the GTX 1060 cool, and I can't imagine the fans will be required to spin up much, even under heavy load. Moving to the PCB itself, which has been given the same aerospace coating of the more costly Extreme Gaming models, we find a number of upgrades. Along with the Titan X-grade chokes and capacitors, we find an upgraded 6+1 power phase design, which should help to lower temperatures and maximise the card's overclocking potential. Gigabyte has also upgraded to an 8-pin PCIe power connector. That said, I should point out that these exact same upgrades are made to the cheaper G1 gaming model as well. For those of you unaware, the Nvidia Founders Edition model only features a 3+1 power phase design along with a single 6-pin connector. Something the G1 gaming model doesn't include are the rear-mounted internal HDMI outputs for more convenient front-mounted VR support. Gigabyte called this feature Xtreme VR Link. Unfortunately, the VR Link bay isn't included in the package, and unlike the 1070 and 1080 models, there isn't a premium pack edition. Honestly, I'd hoped, given the price, this gear would have been included in the package. Still, you're getting that massive cooler, an impressive looking full-length backplate, and some fancy RGB lighting. The 16.8 million colour customizable lighting is a fun novelty addition, but will, for some, help justify the price premium. Another area where the Extreme Gaming ups its game is in the factory overclocking department. Out of the box, the G1 Gaming operates at 1809 MHz boost frequency. The Extreme Gaming goes a bit further at 1847 MHz. That's still only an 8% increase over the Founders Edition model, but as far as a factory overclock goes, that's a pretty decent one. Given how variable the boost clock frequency is with GPU Boost 3.0, it will be interesting to see how much, if any, difference this extra factory overclock makes. That being said, let's jump into the benchmarks. First up, we have ARMA 3. Sadly, the Extreme Gaming doesn't stand out as the superior 1060 here, only matching the G1 Gaming out of the box and overclocked. Not much else to say here either. Despite that big factory overclock, the Extreme Gaming is just 1 FPS faster out of the box when compared to the G1 Gaming. Well, I'm starting to detect a trend here. Out of the box, the Extreme Gaming not only matched the G1 Gaming, but it was also unable to pull away from the Palette Super Jetstream. Again, nothing to see here in the division. The Extreme Gaming isn't able to distance itself from the more affordable 1060 graphics cards, even when overclocked. What do we have here? More of the same it seems. No surprises in Far Cry Primal. Alright, time to wrap this up. It's pretty evident now that slapping a massive cooler on the GTX 1060 doesn't help improve performance or custom overclocking. Power consumption for the Extreme Gaming is on par with the G1 Gaming along with Palette Super Jetstream. Okay, so finally we see our first real evidence of that massive cooler paying off. Out of the box, the Xtreme Gaming never exceeded 59 degrees in our gaming stress tests, making it 5 degrees cooler than the G1 Gaming model. Even overclocked, the card only reached 60 degrees and ran virtually silent. Temperatures aside, there really isn't any telling the Xtreme Gaming apart from models such as the G1 Gaming. This is a shame, but given how GPU Boost 3.0 technology works, it isn't entirely surprising either. The Xtreme Gaming obviously isn't cheap at $300, but the G1 Gaming isn't much better at $290. Those after a $250 MSRP card from Gigabyte will need to invest in the WindForce D5 6GB model. Interestingly, that model features the same 6+1 power phase design and 8-pin power input. As far as we can tell, the only real difference is the cut down cooler, so there's every chance you'll see the same frame rate performance from this model as well. For me, the GTX 1060 Xtreme Gaming seems to be a graphics card designed for gamers who wish they could afford the 1080 but are happy paying a premium to pretend they've got one. Should Gigabyte eventually end up selling this beefy 1060 for around $270, then we can probably justify the purchase, but at $300 it's just too pricey given there's no extra performance to be had. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I'm your host Matt as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers guys for joining me for another episode of Hardware Unboxed. To those of you that already support the channel, thank you so much, it's truly appreciated. And to those of you that would like to support the channel directly, I do have Amazon links and a Patreon link in the video description below. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys next time.